Hello, Riversiders. Today's lesson is on the circulatory system. So, without further ado, let's just share my website and go through the stuff, the important information about the circulatory system. Circulatory system is the system by which we circulate the nutrients, whether it was the two units we just covered, so whether it's the gas exchange that you just made in the respiratory unit, or whether it's nutrients that you got from the digestive system, we then need to spread it around our body. So super simple creatures can just use diffusion. Once again, super easy. They don't need a system for this. It just diffuses. It goes from where there's a lot to where there's little. When you get bigger and more complex, you need a system. That system needs three main parts. It needs a fluid to carry the nutrients, because these nutrients are usually gases or solids or whatever. Sugar is not liquid, it's a solid. So you need a fluid to carry it. You need a tube for that fluid to go through, and you need some sort of driving force, some pump. In us, those would be blood vessels, and hearts. In a heart, but in different creatures, it's different things. Like a plant doesn't have a heart, but it does have a pump system. It doesn't have arteries and veins, but it does have xylem and phloem. And it doesn't have blood, but it has sap. So it has these things. All creatures that are big enough to need a circulatory system have these things. Circulatory systems could be open or closed. An open circulatory system does not connect the tubes back to the heart. A lot of insects have that sort of open circulatory system. The heart, eventually enough fluid collects here, and then it pumps it, and it just sort of goes throughout the body, and then it slowly works its way back. No blood pressure, so you can't have high blood pressure, but also not very regulated. You can't control it very well. A closed circulatory system has a lot more control. However, you have blood pressure you have to deal with. If you were to cut one of these blood vessels, your blood pressure would drop, and then the system doesn't work. If you were to get too much fluid in the system, then your blood pressure would be too high, and the blood vessels could rupture. So there's pros and cons to both. Most complex creatures have a closed circulatory system. So once again, let's look deeper at ours. Our fluid is called blood, and it has a couple of major components. It has plasma. That's the fluid that transports all of these things. It's not the state of matter plasma. It has red blood cells. Their main function is to transport gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. It has white blood cells. Their main function is to fight off invaders. It has platelets, which are little bone fragments which clot blood. So they have a very vital job of, if there's an injury to the blood vessel, to clot it back up so that the blood vessel continues to work. Because like I said, we have to keep that system closed. We also have nutrients and wastes floating around. I don't know if those wouldn't really necessarily be part of blood, but you're not going to find blood without nutrients and wastes. And if you were to centrifuge it, or like look at how much you have of each, most of your blood should be plasma with a lot of red blood cells. Very few white blood cells. If your white blood cell and platelet count is higher than that, your body's fighting off an infection. So it's one of the ways that they can do a white blood count and see if you're fighting off something. Because if you have a thicker layer of white blood cells, then they know your body is making a lot of white blood cells and you're fighting something off. Let's look a little closer. Here are red blood cells. They're really funny looking. They're sort of disc shaped, and they don't actually have nuclei. They can't make more of themselves. They're made in the bones. Actually, so are the white blood cells, so are platelets. All your blood is made in the bones. That's what they do, is they carry gases with something called hemoglobin we'll learn about. The white blood cells fight off bacteria. The image below is more like what they really look like rather than that image above, but whatever helps you remember it. White blood cells grab and kill invaders. They're chock full of lysosomes because their purpose is to chop up invaders. And then you got your platelets. they clot blood. Here's a couple of images of that. There, if one ruptures, then it not only calls more there, but it also makes this web, and that web then like seals up the cut. Now onto our tubes. Our tubes, we have arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries go away from the heart. Veins go towards the heart. Arteries are under a tremendous amount. I think I've got a thing down here. Yeah, they're under a tremendous amount of pressure because the heart makes blood in them move by pumping and making pressure. Your veins don't have pressure. Once the blood's down in your feet, the only thing that's getting it back to your heart is wiggling your toes, like moving the muscles and these valves. So the muscles might squish the blood away from that one spot, and then the valves prevent it from going back down. And so blood moves differently in the arteries and the veins. So arteries being under so much pressure, they have to be very thick. If you were to hold one up, it would keep its form. Whereas veins are very flopsy. You hold it up and just, it's like cooked spaghetti versus uncooked spaghetti. So arteries, because they're under so much pressure, it's very important we don't cut them or hurt ourselves. So those arteries are buried deep down inside of our body. Where possible, it's between our bones, like our arm bones. You have the radius and the ulna, and the artery is right between them. Because if it's near the surface, you could cut it and then you'd bleed and bleed and bleed because it's under so much pressure, just splurting out. That would be horrible. Your veins can be anywhere. They're near the surface. They're around everything to collect the blood back. Arteries are usually red, oxygenated. They usually have oxygenated red blood. Veins have deoxygenated blood, which is sort of purplish, not blue per se, but purplish. So that's them in a nutshell. Arteriosclerosis is when you have like fatty deposits, cholesterol lining your arteries. It can be very bad because here blood flows easy. Here, not only is it constricted so that the blood can't go through so easily, which is bad in its own right. It's going to bring up your blood pressure and stuff. Also, this is a rougher surface that can cause the platelets to rupture and you can get a clot in here. And a blood clot in here would stop any blood from getting through and kill off the section that is on the other side of it. What causes heart attacks and strokes and all that stuff. So blood clots can be very bad. I'm sure you have older relatives who are on blood thinning medicines to keep their blood pressure down and keep their blood from clotting. Anticoagulants would stop their blood from clotting. And then onto the heart. Different creatures have different kinds of hearts. Earthworms have 5 aortic arches. Some have like a single pump. Our heart has 4 chambers. Deoxygenated blood comes into the heart. This is its collecting chamber, the atria. Atrium means the entry room, and then onto the ventricle, and then out to the body. Out to the lungs, then back in from the lungs. Now it's oxygenated. So this is the second atria, into the ventricle, then out to the body. We'll learn about that in class. I'll give lots of examples. There's the blood coming in and going out. Here it is in a grosser way, but you can see how how the heart works. Heart attack is a section of the heart that dies. We'll talk a lot about that in class and in EKG, but I have to keep these short, so I'm going to stop here. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to make longer videos about other things, or specific videos about other things. They can't be longer. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.